All right, so number 56, operations with functions. Our question, how do you add, subtract, multiply, or divide fractions? So we're looking at how to add, subtract, multiply, divide fractions to prepare us for rational expressions, which we will be doing in our next unit. So we're going to start off with multiplying fractions because multiplying fractions is the easiest of the four: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Give you a second to write this down, write down the steps, and then we will review. So for multiplying fractions, all we need to do is multiply straight across. So, and then simplify. So that's what we're going to do. So let's look at the first one. Multiply straight across. So 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 3 is 12. Then we need to simplify 2 and 12, both are divisible by 2. 2 goes into 12 one time. I'm sorry, 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 12 6 times. So 1/6. Even when we include variables, the rule is still to multiply straight across. So 2x times 4 is 8x. And 3y times 9 is 27y. 8x and 27y cannot be simplified. 8 over 27 can't be simplified. So we're good there. Questions? No questions? All right. Let's keep going. Now we're looking at even more variables in the expression, but you're still going to multiply straight across. So I'll give you a second before we work on it so that you can write both of them down. All right, so we're multiplying straight across. So 5xy times 2y, excuse me. 5 times 2 is 10. There's only one x. Y times y will be y squared. In the denominator, 3 times 4 is 12. Z times z is z squared. Can anything be simplified? Only the 10 and 12. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Then we have x, y squared. 2 goes into 12 6 times. And then we have z squared. So multiply straight across, simplify. Last one, 3ab times 5ac. 3 times 5 is 15. A times a is a squared. Then we have a b and a c. In the denominator, 4 times 6 is 24. B times b is b squared. C times c is c squared. Now we got to simplify. 15 and 24 can be reduced. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 3 goes into 24 8 times. There's only one a squared, so that's going to stay the same. B over b squared, so this b will cancel with the squared to give me 1. So I'm left with the b at the bottom. This c will cancel with this squared, and I'm left with a 1 and a c at the bottom. So now we're combining the rules for multiplying fractions as well as the rules for exponents. Any questions on multiplying fractions? Pretty straightforward. We even got it with variables, yes? All right, so of course, then the next thing we're gonna go to is division. So I'll give you a minute to write down the steps. So with division, it simply says, keep the first fraction, multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, simplify. So when it says multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, that means we are going to flip it. So we're going to keep the first fraction in this case, which is 1/4. Then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So if the second fraction is 2/3, then we're going to multiply by 3/2. The rules for multiplication is to multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 2 is 8. And this cannot be simplified. So let's try it again. Keep the first fraction, 2x over 3y. Then multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, which is going to be 9/4. So 2x times 9 is 18x. 3y times 4 gives me 12y. Can this be simplified? Absolutely. They're both divisible by 6. 6 goes into 18 3 times. So we've got 3x. 6 goes into 12 2 times. So we've got 2y. Questions? Okay. On the next one, let's try these two again. Same ones we saw earlier. Now we're just doing division. So again, if they're being divided, we're going to keep the first fraction, 5xy over 3z, and then multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, which makes 4z over 2y. Straight across, 5 times 4 is 20. We have xyz. 3 times 2 is 6. And we have yz. Now we got to simplify. 2 goes into 20 10 times. 2 goes into 6 3 times. These two y's cancel for 1, so I have an x. And these two z's cancel, so all for a 1. So then all I have is 20x over 3. I'm sorry, 10x over 3. All right, let's do the next one. So again, keep the first fraction, so 3ab over 4bc, and then multiply by the reciprocal of the second one, so 6bc over 5ac. So 6 times 3 is 18. I have an a, 2 b's, and a c in the numerator. 4 times 5 is 20. I have an a, a b, and 2 c's in the denominator. Now I'm going to simplify. 2 goes into 18 9 times. 2 goes into 20 10 times. A over a becomes 1. B squared over b, the squared cancels with the b, so I'm left with the b at the top. C over c squared, this c cancels with the squared, so I'm left with a c on the bottom. Questions? Any questions about multiplication and division? Because they pretty much go hand in hand. Okay, so now we are going to move to addition and subtraction, which we're going to do together, but we're going to break it up into 2 parts. So go ahead and write this down, and then we will look at the examples that you see. Okay, so if they have the same denominator, all you have to do is add or subtract the numerators, keep the denominator, and simplify. So looking at this problem here, we have, let me get my pen. So we want to add the numerators because it's an addition problem. So 3 plus 5 is equal to 8, and keep the denominator. And 8 over 4 simplifies to 2. All right. Next, now this one is a subtraction problem. So 2 minus 4 is negative 2. And then we're going to keep the denominator since they are both 3x. And you can write how I have it, negative 2 over 3x, or you can write 2 over 3x with the negative in the middle. That's going to be the same thing. Okay. And then lastly, my denominator is the same here. It is x plus 1, so I keep that denominator, and 6 plus 1 is 7. So questions if it is the same denominator? All right, last slide for the day. If you have unlike denominators, so take a second to write it, and then we will go over these two and we'll be done. Let me say that again. Multiply by 1 to get a common denominator, add or subtract the numerators, keep the denominator, simplify. Now, one looks different. So I can make my 1 be whatever I want it to be. So if I have 1/3 plus 3/4, I'm going to look at this 4. Let me get my pen on. I'm going to look at this 4 in the denominator, and I'm going to use that to make my 1 for the 1/3. So I'm going to take the 1/3 and multiply by 4/4. Because 4/4 is 1, it just looks different. So 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. For the 3/4, I'm going to use my 3 to help me get my 1. So I'm going to multiply by 3/3. So then I'm going to have plus 9/12. And then now it's just same denominator, add the numerators. 4 plus 9 is 13. Keep the denominator 12. I can't simplify. Now, it's important to note that when I'm doing this, I'm trying to get a common denominator. I'm not necessarily trying to get the least common denominator. Just a denominator that is the same. So if it's not the least, that's okay, because that's not what we're going for in this case. We're just going for a denominator that is the same. Okay, so let's look at the last one. So I have 3x and 5x. They're not the same. They do both share an x, so that's cool. I can keep the x, but now I got to do something with the 3 and the 5. So for the first one, I'm going to use the 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5/5. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 3 is 15, and I still have an x. For this one, I'm going to use the 3. So I'm going to multiply by 3/3. And this is subtraction, so I'm going to 2 times 3 is 6, and 5 times 3 is 15. Keep the x. So now I have the same denominator. 20 minus 6 is 14 over 15x. And that can't be simplified, so there I have it. Questions? All right. If there are no questions, that's it. I'll have an activity for you to do tomorrow.